Story 1, Jack on I-40. Part I, Segment 1, The Box. I left Midland at sunset with a thermos of diesel coffee and a promise I was late to keep. 800 miles of interstate between me and a hospital waiting room in Los Angeles. Tommy had texted a picture of a pink knit cap and a fist the size of a walnut. "She's here," he wrote. "Dad, you gotta see her." The screen glowed in the cab long after the color left the sky. The panhandle rolled past in slabs of amber and asphalt. Wind turbines blinked in slow red rhythms over fields of scrub, all those one-eyed giants nodding like they were trying to agree with something they'd never heard. The truck did what trucks do, hummed swallowed miles, kept me between yellow and white. I knew this road. I'd hauled crude through dust storms that turned noon to night. I'd sat a winter on the shoulder with chains frozen to my hands and coyotes watching from a fence line like judges. There isn't much left that scares me when there's a steering wheel under my palms. New Mexico arrived with a colder wind and a sky that learned a new color, bruise blue then ink. I crossed the state line and the radio turned to snow. Not static snow. Soft, whispering like someone poured sifted field dust through a microphone. I flicked stations until the display said no signal and the only sound left was the tires and the old belt on the alternator and my breath. The GPS arrow started to drift. Not a lot, just enough to make the truck icon weave a foot off the interstate, then two, then snap back like a fish on a line. A minute later the map lost its nerve and went white. The voice still tried to help. Recalculating, then it stopped mid-syllable and the screen went black like a lid closing on an eye. I told myself the truth I always tell: electronics die, roads remain. The desert flattened into a sheet of obsidian under a moon that hadn't made up its mind. Now and then a service road stitched toward nothing, a ribbon of lighter black that disappeared under the wheels. Headlights found the reflective bones of a jackrabbit too late and I flinched anyway, feeling the thump that didn't come. Signs thinning out, then no signs at all, the desert taking back its grammar. At 12:31 a.m. a neon bruise appeared on the horizon. A gas station, the kind the interstate forgot to tell the map about. The kind with a single island and a metal canopy that buzzed like a jar of hornets. The letters over the storefront used to say F.I.L. Amori, but half the tubes had died and the rest argued about color. The air smelled like stale fryer and hot rubber. A Coke machine leaned against the wall as if it were too tired to stand. I rolled in with the tank at a quarter and the kind of feeling I've learned not to argue with. Desert nights have two temperatures, outside and inside. Mine was dropping inside. No other vehicles? No hum of another engine coasting to a stop. Just me and the neon and a moth the size of a hand banging itself to death against light. I left the truck idling because old habits keep you breathing. The pump's display lagged a second behind the click of the handle, numbers climbing like a drunk climbing stairs. Inside, the clerk, skinny, long hair, a face that didn't ask questions. He never looked directly at me. He watched my reflection in the cooler door as I grabbed a Gatorade and a bag of sunflower seeds like a man who'd learned to see without getting caught seeing. On the wall behind him, a TV played a local station trying to be a national one, newsreader moving her mouth without sound. The captions ran 3 seconds behind and said meaningless things. Wind advisory in effect. Local AUTHORITIS, no comment. Cash or card, he asked without turning. Card, I said. I slid it. The machine beeped like it had a cold. He pushed the receipt toward me without moving his hand off the counter. You headed west. Everyone who stops here is headed west, I said. Not true, he swallowed. The swallow sounded loud, some circle back. Something in the corner of the store clicked. Not a machine noise. A metal tapping, slow and neat like a ring against glass. I lifted my head and saw nothing. When I looked back, the clerk had put a small paper map on the counter. Hand-drawn with a ballpoint, roads marked like veins. Take this, he said, still not looking at my face, just in case. I've got a GPS. Yeah, he smiled, it didn't touch his eyes. Me too. The wind found the canopy and made it hum like a choir practicing a single bad note. I took the map because refusing would have made the air change. He nodded once, relief hiding in the corner of his mouth like a mouse under a couch. Outside again, I stood in the neon's reach and pretended to stretch. The desert beyond the light wasn't empty, it was full of dark. There's a difference. That's when I saw the first truck. Black, no plates, idling at the edge of the lot with its lights off. A box truck, the kind you use to move furniture that isn't yours. The driver's silhouette was a cutout. No cigarette, no phone glow. The cab window rolled down an inch. Breath ghosted out and disappeared. Second truck parked on the other side of the drive, angled like a shark, nose pointed where I'd have to go to leave. Third one out on the service road, halfway behind a billboard that suggested Jesus would forgive your debts at 5.99% APR. 3 is a number you feel. I set the pump back in the cradle and the attendant's voice came out of the ceiling, flattened by the speaker. You good out there? Yeah, I said to the night. Door banged open behind me. 2 figures came out of the dark between the ice chest and the propane rack and became men when they reached the light. Masks, not Halloween workmen's balaclavas cut at the eyes and mouth. The shorter one wore a denim jacket with the sleeves ripped off, tattoos running down both arms like vines. The taller one's jacket was zipped to the throat. On his neck above the collar a black coil of ink-peaked snake scales. The pattern stuck in my head like a song you hate. They didn't show weapons, they didn't need to. The way they stood was a weapon. Evening, the denim one said. His voice was bright, wrong for the hour. Long way to LA, he had the clean cheer of a man saying a line he'd paid to learn. Keep the cold out, I said, words to fill a space. The taller one smiled with half his mouth. The snake moved when he did. You got folks waiting. My son, I said before I could call that a mistake. New baby. Hell of a thing, Denim said. He took a step closer. The soles of his boots squeaked on the oil-wet concrete. We can help you get there. I know the way, I said. He glanced at the pumps, the canopy, the desert. Not tonight. Behind them, the clerk stood in the door with his hands under the counter, not reaching for a weapon, holding the counter itself like a man anchoring a boat to a dock in a current he couldn't see. Hey, he said, voice flat, you boys need something else or you done. The taller one didn't turn. We're good, preacher. I flicked my eyes to the trucks. The one by the Jesus billboard had rolled forward a foot, not much, enough to let me know I was seen seeing it. Denim scratched his cheek through the knit and left a dark smear. Grease, not blood. Phones are bad in this patch, he said conversationally. GPS too, they bounce. They die, I said. He nodded like I'd passed a test. Sometimes we help folks through friendly service. He stuck a thumb toward the black truck angled at the exit. Just follow us, we'll show you where the road went. The neon fizzed and cut out. The world went red, then black, then light again. In the half-second of dark, my chest forgot to work. The clerk finally raised his head enough that I could see one eye. He didn't blink. He mouthed go and his jaw shook like he'd said it out loud. I took a step that was really a start. Appreciate it, I said, but I'm on the clock. The taller one's smile stayed on his face while the rest of him stopped pretending. We're the clock, he said. He lifted his jacket just enough to show me the curve of a sawed-off shotgun under the denim. The tattooed man grinned to show me the gap where a canine used to be. You know what a box is? He asked. We make one. I know what a box is. One truck in front, one beside, one behind. You aren't a driver anymore. You're a package. The canopy light steadied because the night enjoys jokes. I said, let's not make a mess, because sometimes the only thing to do is aim for a smaller lie. They stepped back in sync. The taller man touched 2 fingers to his throat like he was checking a pulse, and the black trucks answered. Headlights on, engines up. The one guarding the exit rolled forward and drifted right, opening a lane and promising it'd close before I could use it. I slid into the cab, key forward. The engine caught with that old faithful shudder I trust more than most people. I kept my hands loose on the wheel so I wouldn't choke it. In the mirror, the denim and the snake watched me with the patience of men who already owned what I was sitting in. I eased to the driveway, turned right toward the one opening the lane, then knifed the wheel left at the last second and punched it. Rubber screamed, weight shifted. The truck's nose dipped then rose as the rear end fishtailed. The box truck at the exit tried to close the gap, but I was past what physics calls polite. My mirror kissed his fender and took the paint for a souvenir. The speedometer climbed like the hand had somewhere to be. 40, 50, 80. The desert blurred into a single long whisper. Behind me, headlights multiplied and became 3 again. They didn't use horns. They used space, one sliding up alongside on my blind left, another gluing itself to my bumper, the third taking point and easing down like a lid. Box assembled. The left side truck drifted toward me until I could read the maker's stamp on his tire. The driver leaned just far enough into the window that I could see his mask and the line of the shotgun barrel on his lap. He made a little circle with 2 fingers and a thumbs down. Slow down, be good. I didn't. The interstate in that stretch is a straight you could lay a rifle on, but years of desert keep secrets in the asphalt. A crown that wants to throw you into the median, a rut from a summer melt. I rode the sweet spot and waited for the thing the road would offer. It did, a ripple where nighttime repairs had cooled wrong. The truck in front hit it a microsecond before I did. His rear axle hopped. He corrected right, then overcorrected left, the way we all learn not to. The opening he didn't mean to give me was the width of a lie and the length of a prayer. I took it. The world turned into a howl. 90, then 100, then the part of the dial where the numbers are fewer than the seconds. The engine's note went from work to plea. I kept it there anyway. The left side truck clawed for position and almost found it. He was good, or lucky. The third truck behind kept me honest, rocking my bumper with gusts. They didn't need to shoot, they needed me to flinch. Headlights carved the empty lanes ahead into two tunnels. At the edge of the beams, shapes formed, reflective signs, a scatter of cones, the hint of a booth. Border Patrol checkpoint. The kind they set up in the middle of nowhere because nowhere is where people vanish. Floodlights asleep for the night, a single SUV with a light bar parked at an angle, two agents drinking coffee in the dark and pretending to watch nothing happen. The lead black truck braked hard. His brake lights flared like a warning flare over a trench. He wanted me to eat his bumper or the L-shaped bollards or my own fear. I feathered down one gear and slid into the pocket between panic and math. The checkpoint lanes opened like the mouth of something undecided. One carried orange barrels and a closed sign lying on its side. One was clear. One had a spike strip coiled like a snake, ready to be dragged. The agents saw us at the same time we saw them. Coffee went to the ground. Hands went to hips. The SUV's engine coughed and then woke. The left side truck did the stupid thing he thought was smart. He cut across my nose for the clear lane. I aimed for the closed one and trusted the barrels to be lighter than bad luck. They were. Orange went flying. Plastic thumped under the chassis and got out of the way. Behind me, a shotgun went off, sound short and mean in the open night. The blast chewed taillight, not me. The agent stopped half-drawn, then finished the motion, pistols up, eyes wide, 1,000 policy memos turning to a single four-letter word in both their heads. The lead black truck panicked late. He swerved. He chose wrong. His fender kissed the checkpoint island and buckled. His back end came around with the grace of a drunk, and the box caught air and then gravity and then the steel post that doesn't move for anyone. Metal screamed. Headlights shattered. The driver became a shape and then another kind of shape. The truck behind me braked too hard and jackknifed into the median, trailer folding like a broken arm. The third, my left-hand shadow, ditched into the scrub and plowed a trench that flamed with a spark we didn't ask for. The desert grabbed the fire and ran with it because that's what deserts do. The SUV's light bar woke and painted the interstate blue and red and white like a 4th of July that forgot to be happy. Somebody yelled. Somebody else yelled back. My truck wanted to keep running until California. I let it. 200 yards past the checkpoint, I let the speed bleed like a nose and rolled to a stop with the engine trembling like a dog after thunder. I sat there and counted my bones by feel, then I looked in the mirror. The taller one with the snake had left his mask in the wreck, ripped or thrown. I don't know, his face was cut along the cheekbone and the blood made its own ink. The tattoo on his neck looked like it had moved. He stood in the wash of the checkpoint lights, crooked at the hip like pain was just an opinion. He stared at me without blinking, then stepped backward into the dark like a man walking into water. He was gone by the time the agent's flashlight found where his shadow should have been. They surrounded me fast, but not too fast. Hands up, hands on wheel, windows down. We all know the drill. I followed it like a catechism. When the younger agent saw my eyes, he holstered without looking down, the way you do when you've already decided a man is on your side because his hands won't stop shaking. "Sir, you want to tell me what the hell that was?" he asked. I swallowed dust and the last of my luck. You got a bigger word than hell. He glanced past me at the black trucks buckled like paper and the fire running low in the scrub and the busted neon bleeding into the night from a mile back. He didn't answer. He didn't have to. They took statements until my throat went hoarse and their pens stopped believing me. Then an older man with a border eagle on his jacket came out of the SUV with a tablet and a look that had seen this shape before. "Been getting these," he said. 3, sometimes 4, no plates. Sell jammers, they box solo drivers, run them dry, strip the trucks, leave the rest to coyotes and morning." "How many?" I asked. He looked at the fire. 5 we know about, more we don't. The younger agent stared at the dark. "You think they're gone." The older one chewed that for a second. "They're never gone, they're just off the road." A paramedic dabbed at the cut I didn't remember getting on my cheek and said something gentle about blood being proof you're still here. I nodded like I believed it. When they let me stand, the clerk from the station was there in the edge of the lights, hands shoved in pockets, eyes saying he'd come as soon as he could without dying. He didn't cross the line. He just lifted his chin once in a way that meant you did what you could, and I lifted mine in a way that meant I know what I owe. The tablet man asked if I had anyone I could call. I thought of Tommy in a chair under a hospital TV, a bundle on his chest, a woman with hair stuck to her forehead asleep with a smile that would outlast any road. I thought of 3 black trucks angled like teeth. I thought of the GPS arrow drifting like a drunk moth and the neon spelling a name that wasn't a name anymore. "I'll keep driving," I said, "if it's the same to you." He looked at my hands, at the way they'd started to shake again, and at the highway stretching into a dark so straight it could only be man-made. "Yeah," he said softly, "it's the same to me." I climbed back in the cab and the engine answered like it was relieved to be told what to do. The mirror showed only lights and men and smoke. The desert had already eaten everything else. I pulled onto I-40 and the night closed over the windshield like a hand. Somewhere far ahead, a hospital corridor hummed and a baby slept, and a son waited for his father to open a door he'd never seen. The speedometer found a number that didn't scare the part of me that still knew math. The GPS woke up for half a breath, flickered, and died again. I didn't need it. The road knew my name now, and I knew there were men out there with masks and a snake that moved on the skin and a way of boxing a life until it forgot it could turn. But I was still moving, and not all boxes close. Hard Eye Segment 2, the signal that wouldn't die. Dawn never came clean. It bled in slow, dirty stripes across the windshield, making every smear of dust and insect look like handwriting from the night before. I drove west through what used to be New Mexico and felt the world try to remember how to be daylight again. The checkpoint was 50 miles behind, but I could still see it when I closed my eyes, the wrecks, the fire, the man with the snake tattoo walking backward into dark. Some things don't vanish, they just switch frequencies. The CB radio hissed once, sharp enough to make me flinch. I hadn't touched that dial in years. Nobody used Channel 19 anymore except ghosts and truckers who hadn't learned silence yet. Through the static came a voice like gravel rolled in oil. "CK Jack Harlan, you out there?" My name hit like cold water. I grabbed the mic. "Who's calling?" "Name, Denny. Border Boys told me you ran through some bad company last night." "Yeah," I said, "company's a nice word." "Keep to I-40, don't stop, they're scanning for you." "Scanning." They got eyes in the sky now, drones, modified. You see lights behind you that don't blink in pattern, don't wait to find out whose. The line cut, no click, no goodbye, just silence folding over itself. The interstate straightened into a perfect ribbon. A mirage shimmered ahead, 3 black dots rising and falling with the heat. For a heartbeat I thought it was them, the trucks, resurrected and waiting. Then I realized they weren't moving forward, they were moving up. Drones, military-grade, dull metal instead of gloss, no markings. They drifted above the road like vultures pretending to be machines. One of them lowered until it matched my speed at 75. Its camera pod turned, a single red eye studying the cab. Then my dashboard flickered, speedometer, fuel gauge, everything reset to 0. The radio turned itself on. "Jack." The same voice as the clerk, soft, apologetic, should have thrown that map away. Static swallowed the rest. I slammed the radio off, stomped the accelerator, and the truck answered with a howl that felt alive. The drone followed, silent and steady. Another one joined, then another. 3 again. The desert opened into a basin the color of rust. Wind ripped dust in long, angry lines. Somewhere in that noise, a siren began, a single note stretched too thin, not police, not human. I cut down a service road toward the ruins of a rest area, the kind built in the 70s and left to rot. Picnic tables, dry fountains, concrete bathrooms spray-painted with names of the dead. The drones didn't follow. They hung above the interstate, watching like they'd hit the edge of a map. Inside the building, the air tasted of copper and rain that never fell. Someone had smashed the mirrors and nailed road signs over the windows. On the floor, fresh tire tracks led to the back door. I followed them into the maintenance bay and stopped. A laptop sat on an oil drum, humming, screen alive. Same map the clerk had drawn, only digital now, pulsing with red dots across the southwest. One dot blinked bright white. Me. Another voice came from the laptop speaker, low, measured, almost kind. We didn't want you, Jack, you drove into it. Into what? The grid, the one under the one you see. The screen shifted, satellite images, highways glowing like veins. Every few seconds, sections flickered black, then red again, like something breathing through power lines. They box people because it feeds data, the voice said. Fear, heart rate, GPS, it all uploads. You were the first to escape alive. They can't allow that. Who's they? You already met one, the man with the snake. I reached for the power button. The voice laughed, dry as dust. You can't turn off what's everywhere. The laptop shut itself down. The hum didn't stop, it just moved into the walls. Outside, the wind had picked up. Sand scraped the truck like claws. The drones were gone. The sky looked empty until lightning cut it open sideways. For an instant, the clouds were full of shapes, boxes, grids, faces made of code. I drove west again, faster than reason. When the first mile marker for Arizona appeared, my phone lit up on its own. No bars, no carrier, just one message. We're not done. Then the screen cracked from inside out, spiderwebbing light across my hand. The highway climbed into mesas, then dropped into another basin. A state trooper's cruiser sat on the shoulder, lights off, driver door open. No one inside. Radio playing, a child's voice counting numbers that didn't reach 10. At the next bend, a black truck waited half off the road. The same make, same color, hood still dented from the checkpoint crash. The engine idled, cab empty. On the passenger seat, a baby's blanket. I stopped 50 feet short. Every instinct said go, but something stronger said look. Inside the cab, the dash camera light was on recording. The lens turned toward me by itself. A whisper came through the speaker, softer than the wind. Drive, Jack, you're almost home. The tail lights of the wreck flicked on without hands, brake lights glowing like eyes. I reversed hard until gravel screamed under the tires. Then I turned the truck around and didn't stop until the interstate swallowed me whole again. By the time I hit Flagstaff, daylight had given up trying. The sky was the same gray as ash after a fire that doesn't admit it's over. I parked at a diner full of chrome and silence. The waitress poured coffee that tasted of dust and asked if I was the man from the news. I told her I was. She nodded like that was worse. In the bathroom mirror, I saw the outline of something on my neck. At first I thought it was a bruise from the seat belt, then the light caught scales. They moved when I swallowed. I pulled my collar up, paid in cash, and kept driving west, past signs for needles for Barstow for the edge of everything. The radio turned itself on again. Recalculating, the GPS said, cheerful and dead. Estimated time of arrival, never. I laughed once, sharp and ugly, because it sounded right. The road ahead shimmered under heat that didn't belong to night. And somewhere behind me, 3 engines started. Hard Eye Segment 3, the road that eats sound. The desert west of Flagstaff looks like the end of a film reel. Nothing but grain and light scratches across the sky. Every road sign bleached blank. Every shadow stretched too thin. I'd been driving for 18 hours straight, chasing daylight that didn't want me. The baby blanket from the wreck sat folded on the passenger seat where a man ought to be. Sometimes it breathed when the wind shifted. I told myself it was the aircon vent. I told myself a lot of things. The GPS stayed dead, but the black screen still glowed faintly as if it remembered how to be alive. Every few miles it pulsed once, the same rhythm as my heartbeat. 1 a.m. I hit a stretch of I-40 so straight it might have been drawn with a ruler through hell. No other headlights for miles. Then, up ahead, a strobe of white cut across the asphalt, 3 flashes, pause, 3 again. Emergency flare pattern. I slowed, thumb hovering over the CB switch. Static whispered names that weren't mine. A car sat sideways across both lanes, trunk open, hazard lights dead. The hood smoked faintly. Someone stood in front of it, waving both arms, the universal sign for help me or I'm already gone. I rolled the window halfway down. You okay? She turned, mid-30s, highway patrol uniform, badge dulled by dust, blood crusted along her temple. Jack Harlan, she asked. My foot froze on the brake. How do you know my name? Dispatch, she said, you're listed missing. That was fast. She smiled without moving her eyes. We tracked the people who shouldn't be alive. Something behind her trunk moved, too tall, too slow. The same shape I'd seen at the checkpoint, head tilted, neck tattoo glowing faintly red. The snake man, not burnt, not broken, just waiting. The trooper's radio crackled on her belt, a male voice counting backward from 10. When he reached 1, she lifted the flare gun and fired. The flare burst against my windshield in a bloom of orange fire. Heat punched through the glass. I hit the gas. The truck leapt forward, grill catching her shoulder, throwing her clear. She rolled once, twice, vanished under her own headlights. The snake man stepped into the lane, shotgun raised. I swerved left, felt buckshot pepper the door, smelled metal tear. The tires screamed. The truck fishtailed, then found purchase. In the mirror, the patrol car burned quietly, red and white light mingling until they looked like one color, warning. I drove blind into the mountains. Radio towers blinked on the ridges, signaling to a sky that had stopped listening. Every few minutes the CB muttered a single word. Turn, slow, stop. I ignored them all. When the fuel light came on, the gauge needle twitched back and forth like it couldn't decide which lie to tell. I coasted into an old way station, the same kind I'd seen 1,000 times hauling crude. Everything looked normal until I stepped out. There were footprints, hundreds of them, bare, pressed into the asphalt like wax impressions, all facing one direction, east, back toward Texas, toward whatever was hunting me. I should have left then, but a door stood open on the side office, warm yellow light spilling out like an invitation. My reflection moved in the window before I did. Inside, every wall was covered with photos. Polaroids, printed stills from dash cams, gas station security grabs, all the same stretch of I-40, different years. 2017, 2019, 2021, same trucks, same 3 boxes. In the newest picture, my rig filled the frame. Timestamp, tonight, 12:47 a.m. The clerk from Fillmore stood in the corner. He looked smaller now, eyes hollowed by things he'd seen too clearly. He held the old paper map in his hands. It was burning from the edges inward, flames without smoke. They don't stop, he said. They never do. Every time someone survives, they redraw the road. Who are they? He shook his head. Nobody drives this highway anymore. It drives itself. The window shattered. The snake man stepped through the frame like it was water, mask gone, face a patchwork of burn and smile. The shotgun hung at his side. He didn't need it. The way he looked at me was enough. You made good time, Jack, he said. They'll want to see you now. The clerk threw the burning map at him. The flames flared green, swallowing both in a roar that smelled of diesel and ozone. I ran. Back in the cab, the dash came alive, every light blinking red, the GPS restarting with a cheery tone. Welcome back, Jack. Follow the AROWS. On the screen, a new route traced itself west, glowing blood orange through California's desert. Over the speakers, a child's voice whispered the words to a lullaby I didn't know. Hush, little driver, don't you cry. I ripped the cable out, threw the unit out the window. The voice stayed. They'll box you when you die. I shifted into gear, engine screaming defiance. The horizon shimmered ahead, city lights or fire, I couldn't tell. Either way, forward was the only direction left. As I crested the last hill, dawn finally arrived. Not golden, white, harsh, surgical. In that light, I saw the truth of the interstate laid bare. Every few miles, skid marks curved off into the desert, each ending in the black husk of a truck, a car, a bus, hundreds, maybe thousands, each wreck facing west. Each wreck empty. Somewhere near the California line, the radio clicked once more. The voice was new, female, calm, professional. Mr. Harlan, this is Agent Voss, Federal Highway Investigation. If you hear this, pull over immediately. You're driving through a closed sector. Repeat, closed. Her transmission drowned under another frequency. Lower, rougher, too human. Don't stop, Jack. You'll make the same mistake I did. Static, then both voices together, overlapping into a single chant that grew until it filled the cab. Words I couldn't understand, but my blood did. The highway stretched forever. The sun rose higher and failed to warm anything. I kept my hands steady on the wheel and didn't blink when the shadows of 3 trucks fell across the road ahead. They were waiting. I smiled without meaning to. Let's finish it. and the I-40 opened its mouth. End of Story 1, Jack and the Hell Chase on I-40. Story 2, Laura and Sarah, Death in the Mojave. Part I, Segment 1, The Shortcut. I've always trusted the map more than my instincts. The map glows, instincts don't. That was the mistake. We left Las Vegas after sunset, the sky still bruised from neon. Sarah rode shotgun with her boots on the dash, scrolling through her phone. We were headed to Austin to see Grandma, 800 miles of asphalt heat and the ghost-light shimmer of the Mojave. The app said the new route would save 2 hours if we cut south through an old stretch of Route 66. Local favorite, it promised, scenic, low traffic. Sarah laughed when I read it aloud. Low traffic means no cops, she said, let's go. So we went. By midnight, the city was just a pink echo in the rearview. The desert pressed in, black, endless, still. My high beams carved 2 white scars into the road. Every 30 miles we passed a shuttered gas station, windows boarded, signage bleached to bone. A truck stop here, a broken billboard there, nothing that breathed. Sarah filmed the road with her phone for her vlog. She called it Desert Dreams. 22 followers, all city kids who thought sand was aesthetic. I told her to turn it off before we hit open country, signal dies out here, and so do phones that try too hard. She ignored me as always. At 12:37 a.m., the GPS voice chirped. Rerouting for optimal travel. The arrow shifted off the main highway onto a narrow service road. I slowed, frowning. That can't be right, that road isn't even paved. Sarah leaned over, chewing gum. It's fine, Laura, it's legit. Look, see, only 35 minutes faster. We'd been driving 10 hours. 35 minutes sounded like mercy. I took the turn. The asphalt ended after a mile, replaced by hard-packed dirt. The headlights caught sand kicking up behind us, tiny ghosts swirling in the beams. The air changed, no more hum of passing trucks, no wind, just the crunch of our tires and the static hiss of the radio searching for something to believe in. The phone signal died, GPS froze mid-sentence. The desert ate our connection whole. Great, I muttered. Sarah laughed. It's just a dead zone. Relax, we'll be back on track soon. She always said that, relax, as if fear were a habit, not an alarm. The moon climbed higher. The horizon looked bruised, not black. Somewhere in the distance, a single gas station sign flickered green, not red, its glow weak as breath through fabric. Fuel stop, Sarah asked. We're fine. Half tank, she said, eyes still on the sign. Come on, bathroom break, snack, you can't survive on sunflower seeds forever. She was right, the tank was lower than I wanted to admit. I slowed again, gravel popping under the tires. The sign said serve right, letters peeling, neon half dead. We pulled into a lot scattered with tumbleweed and bones of old tires. A single pump leaned under a canopy that buzzed like a live wire. Inside, the place looked embalmed. Racks of expired candy, a cooler humming to itself, the faint smell of burnt coffee and dust. The clerk was a man in his 50s, skin like leather, hat pulled low. His badge read Henry. He smiled like someone who hadn't practiced in a while. Ladies, he said, where you headed? Texas, I answered, visiting family. Through here, his voice cracked on the here. App said it's faster, Sarah said brightly, saves 2 hours. Henry's smile twitched. App's wrong, this road been closed 10 years. Landslide wiped half of it out. Locals don't use it, no one does. I felt the back of my neck tighten. Then why's it still on the map? He shrugged, some things don't get erased. Sarah giggled, trying to ease the air. Creepy much. He didn't laugh. Instead, he leaned closer across the counter. Don't stop again until you hit the interstate. You hear me? If you see lights, keep going. People out here, they make lights. I paid cash for gas and dragged Sarah out before she could ask for selfies. As we left, Henry stepped onto the porch, hand raised like he wanted to say more. Then the neon above him blinked twice and died. Half an hour later, the road began to narrow. The desert folded in, dunes taller, brush thicker. The headlights picked up something glinting ahead, metal fragments, maybe wrecks. When we passed them, I saw tires shredded to ribbons. Not one, not two, dozens lined up like offerings. Sarah leaned toward the window. What the hell? I didn't answer. My knuckles had gone white on the steering wheel. At 1:03 a.m., the right front tire blew. The sound was sharp, final, a gunshot under the hood. The steering wheel jerked left, then right. I fought it, managed to pull onto the sand shoulder before the rim shredded itself. Sarah cursed, already reaching for her phone. I'll call for help. No signal, I said. She looked anyway, 0 bars.
Shit.
We sat there a minute, the engine ticking. Outside, the desert breathed heat even under the moon. Far off, something metallic creaked, the sound of a chain pulled slow. I got out, flashlight in hand. The beam caught the tire, sliced clean, not punctured, a cut so perfect it couldn't have been debris. Behind us, footprints, heavy, round, deep. Laura, Sarah's voice quivered through the open window. You see something. Just sand, I lied. Then the van appeared. Headlights off, coasting silent along the ridge to our left, a black silhouette against silver dunes. Someone's coming, Sarah said, relief cracking her voice. The van stopped 20 feet away, no movement inside. I waved my flashlight. Hey, we need help. The van door slid open. 2 men stepped out, one tall, one shorter, both wearing jeans and work boots. The tall one carried a length of chain. The short one had something glinting in his hand, knife maybe. They started walking toward us, slow, deliberate. I backed toward the driver's door. Sarah, lock it.
What?
Lock the damn doors. She fumbled for the switch. I dove in as the tall man spoke, voice smooth, practiced. Evening, ladies, trouble with your tire. We're fine, I said, slamming the door. He laughed. You sure? We saw you turn off back there. That app gets people lost. Happens all the time. The shorter man circled the car, tapping the chain against the body like he was testing it. Tap, tap, tap. Tell him we're calling the cops, Sarah whispered. There's no signal, I said. Oh God. The tall man's smile widened. Phone trouble, we can fix that. He lunged. I floored it. The car lurched forward on 3 tires, metal screaming. The men jumped aside, one hitting the mirror hard enough to crack it. The engine howled, gravel spit fire behind us. The van followed, headlights still dark, engine roaring. Sarah sobbed beside me. They're chasing us, oh my God, there. I see them. The car hit 80 before the rim tore loose. Sparks sprayed the night. Ahead, the dirt road split into 2. One lane led into black mountains, the other vanished into open desert. The app map still glowed faintly on the dash, white line into nowhere. I took the mountains. Behind us, gunfire cracked twice. The rear window burst, glass spraying like ice. Sarah screamed, ducking low. I kept driving. There was nothing else to do. We hit pavement again without warning, a single-lane stretch of cracked asphalt winding between cliffs. The van's headlights finally came on, 2 burning eyes closing fast. I could smell the engine, the oil, the blood from my bitten tongue. Then, at the far end of the canyon, light, real light. A checkpoint barrier, reflective tape glowing red and white, figures in uniform running toward the road, guns raised. Border Patrol, Sarah gasped. I didn't slow down, the van was too close. When we burst into the floodlights, voices shouted, tires screamed. I jerked the wheel. The van clipped the barrier and flipped, rolling 3 times before it exploded into a storm of sparks. I braked so hard the world went silent. Smoke billowed, uniforms swarmed us. Hands pulled Sarah out, then me. Everything turned to shouting, radios, flashlights. One officer, a woman, calm, tired eyes, gripped my arm. You girls lucky, those bastards, we've been tracking them for months. Who are they? I asked, voice barely mine. Human traffickers, she said. Use fake routes, poison fuel, hack GPS, make people vanish out here. She looked back toward the burning van. Guess they missed their turn. The sun rose over the Mojave like nothing had happened. Wind blew ash across the sand, covering tire tracks, footprints, everything. A new day pretending to be clean. Sarah slept in the ambulance, bruised but alive. I stood outside watching the smoke fade. On the horizon, a green sign flickered weakly. Serve right, half dead, letters humming. A man stood beneath it, hat pulled low, waving once. Henry. He smiled when he saw me, then the sign went dark. Hard Eye Segment 2, The Vanishing Road. The desert doesn't keep memories, it just rearranges them. By the time the FBI convoy reached the crash site, the van was gone. Not burned out, not buried, gone, just a pit of scorched earth where it had rolled. The agents blamed the heat or the flashpoint or the wind, but I saw the way their eyes skipped over the missing metal like it had been erased on purpose. They questioned us separately. My story was simple: a wrong turn, a flat tire, two men, gunfire, fireball. Sarah's story was simpler: they wanted to take me. They let us go with blankets and paper cups of coffee that tasted like fear. The officer, the same woman from the floodlights, slipped me a card before we left: Special Agent Tours, Federal Task Force on Interstate Disappearances. She said, if you remember anything new, call, especially if you see lights where there shouldn't be any. I didn't plan to call anyone. By dawn, we were sitting in a motel off Highway 95, the kind of place where the sheets smell of detergent and old rain, and the front desk clerk never asks for last names. Sarah slept in bursts, twisting under the thin blanket, muttering words I didn't want to catch. I sat by the window and watched the desert shift color. Every car that passed made me flinch. Every shadow at the edge of the light became a van waiting for us to blink. The TV news looped a single headline: 3 dead in Mojave traffic SHOOTOUT. The photo behind the anchor wasn't our car, it wasn't the checkpoint either. It was the Serve Right station burning. I turned off the TV and stepped outside. The motel sign buzzed overhead: no vacancy, half lit. Across the lot, a sedan idled with its lights off, driver hidden behind tinted glass. When I blinked, it was gone. By noon, Sarah insisted on leaving. I'm not staying in another motel, she said. I can't breathe in here. She was pale, eyes ringed red. I wanted to argue, but I didn't want to sleep another night within walls that hummed. We packed, paid cash, and headed east again. Tour's card sat on the dashboard. The name had begun to fade, ink bleeding outward like wet veins. The highway stretched clean for miles. I thought we'd escaped the Mojave's teeth. Then the GPS, dark since last night, flickered to life. Route RCLCULATD. Next turn, Serve Right Road. My blood ran cold. The screen glowed with the same route, curving south into nowhere, bright red. Sarah grabbed the phone from the cup holder. We didn't turn it on. The display brightness climbed until it hurt to look. The speaker hissed. You forgot something, a man's voice said, calm and smiling. We fix flats. I threw the unit out the window. The glass cracked when it hit asphalt. The screen stayed lit, arrow still turning. At 2 p.m., the horizon rippled with heat. A shape shimmered ahead, gas station sign, green, flickering. No, Sarah whispered, it can't be. But it was. Serve Right, standing in the same spot it had been last night, whole again, the same moths fluttering under the canopy light, the same truck parked crooked near pump 2. Henry stood outside, wiping the counter with the same rag. I slowed without meaning to. Don't stop, Sarah hissed, keep going. I pressed the accelerator, the car lurched forward and the road changed. The white lines warped, curving inward, asphalt shimmered like oil on water. The odometer froze. The world outside the windshield began to stretch like we were driving through a tunnel made of mirage. Then the engine died. The car coasted to a stop 50 feet from the pump. Laura, Sarah said, please don't get out. Henry waved from the porch, smile gentle. Welcome back, girls, told you not to stop. The heat hit me like a hand when I opened the door. Henry looked real, skin, shadow, breath, but the station behind him wavered like a reflection on water. Where are the men? I asked. Gone, he said. The desert took them. It takes what belongs to it. What does it want from us? Nothing it hasn't already had. He looked over my shoulder toward Sarah. You shouldn't have taken the shortcut. Why? I asked. Because that road was never meant for you. It's theirs. He nodded past the pumps. Shapes moved in the heat haze, tall, slow, silent, not men, shadows with shoulders and faces that never stayed the same. Each carried something that caught light: chains, knives, a gleam of metal. They were walking straight toward us, feet never touching sand. Henry stepped back into the dark of the doorway. If you want to live, don't scream. He vanished, the door closed by itself. The Serve Right sign flickered, brighter, faster, until the tubes popped like gunfire. Sarah screamed anyway. I grabbed her hand and ran. The car was dead, but downhill was gravity's friend. We half rolled, half flew down the slope, sand spitting up behind us. The shadows followed, soundless except for the faint jingle of metal. Behind us, the gas station imploded. No explosion, no flame, just collapsing inward like someone had yanked it off the world. By the time we hit the dry riverbed below, the air went cold, real colds like mountain winter. Sarah fell to her knees sobbing, "Laura, they're gone, they're gone." I looked back, nothing but sand. No prints, no building, no Henry, just a single road sign stuck crooked in the ground. Serve right, right arrow 2 miles. We never saw the van again, but every radio station between Needles and Flagstaff played the same ad for a week. Need a shortcut through the desert? Try Serve Right, we'll take care of you. That night, Sarah slept in the passenger seat, trembling in her dreams. I drove under a sky that never ended. The phone in the glove box buzzed once. No service, just one notification. New route available. Tap to begin. I didn't touch it, but the map opened anyway. A red line blinked on the screen. It led straight east, through the desert back toward Texas, where Grandma waited, where maybe the road was still honest. I turned onto the highway. The map whispered, "Recalculating. Hard I segment 3, the road with no mouth." We didn't talk for the first 50 miles. The sun climbed behind us, pale and cold, the kind of light that makes everything look like it's already been photographed. Sarah sat against the window, eyes half open, whispering to herself. I drove because moving felt safer than thinking. The desert stretched in every direction, washed clean by wind. No cars, no towns, just endless dirt. The GPS kept whispering through the broken speaker. Turn left, turn left. Every 20 seconds, even when there wasn't a road. When the tank hit a quarter, I knew we couldn't keep guessing. I slowed and checked the paper map Tours team had given us. The highway numbers were fading like old bruises, but one detail caught my eye: our road wasn't supposed to exist. The ink just stopped halfway through the Mojave, replaced by a gray smear that looked like someone had tried to erase it. Sarah stirred. "Where are we?" "Between places." "That's not funny." I wasn't trying to be. At noon, the heat shimmered off the hood like glass. In the distance, something flashed, a line of metal across the sand. It could have been rails or a fence or the edge of another highway. I turned toward it. Tires hissed over gravel. The closer we got, the less it looked like anything man-made. It was a road, but wrong. 2 perfect lanes, paved fresh, no signs, no cracks, stretching straight into the horizon. The air above it trembled like a mirage. The GPS came alive again. Proceed to the highlighted route. Sarah's hands tightened on her seatbelt. "Please don't. We're out of gas in 20 miles. It's this or walking." She shook her head but said nothing. I turned onto the blacktop. The sound changed immediately. No hum, no wind, no tire noise, just silence. Even the engine seemed to choke on it. Every mile marker we passed read 0. After 10 minutes, I realized the mirrors weren't reflecting right. The horizon behind us stayed the same dune, same cloud, same slant of light. Sarah started crying softly. "Laura," she said, "I think the road's eating the sound." Then she pointed at the dashboard. The clock was spinning backward. We tried turning around, but the wheel locked. The speedometer froze at 47. The GPS voice giggled once, actually giggled, and said, "Shortcut complete, thank you for choosing us." The horizon began to ripple. Out of the heat came headlights, 1 pair, then 2, then 3, a van, old and black, crawling toward us without stirring dust. The same van. I threw the car in reverse. It didn't move. Sarah screamed, "Get out." We ran. The door locks snapped open by themselves, metal shrieking in protest. We hit the sand running, bare feet slicing on gravel, heat biting through our jeans. The van rolled to a stop where we'd been. Its side door slid open. Inside, nothing. Not seats, not tools, just a long black space that swallowed light. A voice drifted out, Henry's, calm and patient. "You can't drive away from where you already are." The sand under us shifted. For the first time, I realized the highway wasn't built on the desert, it was built into it. Beneath the top layer of dust, a second layer gleamed, steel, cables, circuits. The road was alive. Sarah stumbled. I grabbed her wrist. Her pulse hammered under my fingers, faster, fatting. "Laura, it's pulling." She was right. The sand moved like water, dragging us toward the van. The shadow underneath spread outward, swallowing footprints, heat, noise. I remembered what Henry had said, "If you see lights, keep going." I yanked her free, turned toward the only brightness left. the far ridge, maybe 500 yards away, dotted with towers and power lines.
We ran.
Behind us, the van's engine roared to life, low and deep, the sound of metal grinding bone. The road cracked open along its seams, spilling red light. Every pulse matched my heartbeat. We reached the ridge just as the car's shadow swallowed our footprints. I shoved Sarah upward, scraping my palms on rock. She climbed, screaming my name, reaching back. The ground split. The blacktop folded like paper and the van rose with it, balanced on 4 wheels that weren't touching anything. In the driver's seat sat no one and everyone, faces shifting under the windshield like fish in a tank. I climbed, the ridge trembled but held. Sarah reached down, grabbed my arm, pulled. For a second we both believed we'd make it. Then a hand came out of the sand and took her. It wasn't a man's hand, it was gray, slick, long-fingered. It wrapped around her ankle and pulled so fast she didn't scream right away. I dove after her, caught her other leg. The skin under my grip burned ice cold. "Hold on. Don't let me go." The hand yanked again, her fingers slipped. The last thing I saw was her face, eyes wide, mouth open, and then she was gone, dragged under like the desert had inhaled her. The sand smoothed itself, perfect, unbroken. I lay there until my throat dried shut. When I woke, the world was silent again. The road below was empty, the van gone. Only one thing remained, a single highway marker jutting from the sand beside me. Serve Right Road 0 miles. I stumbled down barefoot, half blind from the light. At the edge of the pavement, my phone buzzed once. Screen cracked, battery dead, but a new message burned through anyway. Rider 2 of 2 DLIVRED, thank you for using Serve Right. Then the phone shut off for good. They found me 2 days later, walking on I-10, dehydrated, barefoot, holding a blanket that didn't belong to me. The report said trauma and heat stroke. Agent Tours asked about Sarah, about the van, about the men. I told her the truth, the road took her. She didn't write it down. A month later, the Serve Right lot was excavated by state police. They found 42 tires, 1 burned badge, and a single black box humming faintly underground, an old GPS unit. Its screen blinked until they pulled the plug. Next destination, you. Some nights when the wind slides through the window at the wrong pitch, I still hear it. The hum of rubber over blacktop, the voice whispering roots in my ear. Recalculating. Shortcut available. Proceed to the highlighted road. And sometimes I almost answer. Buried Files, Highway Horrors Story 3, Mike and the Route 66 Ghost. Part I, Segment 1, The Man with the Chain. Route 66 doesn't end, it frays. Hatches and frontage, neon bones and empty diners, postcards that never learned how to die. I took it out of stubbornness and nostalgia and the kind of arrogance a practical man mistakes for caution. Arizona to Chicago in a straight, crooked line. The interstate could have eaten the miles cleaner, but the old road kept winking from the shoulder, promising cheap gas and a view of what used to be America. I'm a civil engineer by trade. I like lines that stay where someone drew them. I prefer concrete that remembers its curing day. I don't believe in hauntings, I believe in deferred maintenance. The July heat worked like a slow fever. Mesas reduced to silhouettes the color of dried blood. Ghost motels repeating the same vacancy sign to no one. A storm built itself out of nothing on the horizon, one cloud first, then its brothers marching. I checked my gauges the way I checked my work. Oil fine, temp steady, tire pressure a little soft on the rear right, but nothing worth a stop. My rental's dash lit the cabin like a cockpit. Warnings I didn't need and one that I did. A yellow triangle that kept thinking I was drifting. The lane camera didn't understand fatting paint. It wanted white lines and got archaeology. Sunset arrived like a door half closed. The storm followed it across the flats and into the low hills where 66 pretends to be a 2-lane. Wind rose, a steady push from the passenger side that made the car lean into it like a man in a bar argument. Radio lost its mind, AM shouting prophecies, FM rinsed in static, and then there was only the fan and the tires and my own breath measured like math. I saw the first flash of lightning on the far ridge and timed the thunder. 4 seconds. 3. 2.5. Distance decreasing, pressure dropping, the asphalt sweating out its stored day. He appeared between miles, one of those gaps where the numbers go missing and the state shrugs. Middle of the road, right where the faded centerline ghosts itself, a man, tall, narrow, hat brim pulled low, coat too long for heat, boots polished by walking. In his right hand he held a chain, not a leash, not a tow line, a chain with links that caught lightning and gave it back in smaller bites. He didn't wave, he didn't flinch, he looked at my car like I had arrived late. I braked hard enough to make everything in the backseat reconsider gravity. The tires sang their complaint. The car fishtailed and settled. I ended up sideways in the lane with my heart playing a second instrument in my throat. The man didn't move. The storm did. It turned the sky into film grain. Rain started as an audition and landed as a job. I lowered the window half an inch. Hot air climbed in. The chain chimed once against itself, metal against metal, clean and deliberate. That sound carried farther than anything else in the weather. I said the kind of thing you say to prove you're still in charge of the voice you own. Hey, you all right? He lifted the chain, not high, just enough to let me see the shape it made when gravity wasn't the only rule. It bowed in the middle and pointed at my front bumper. The practical explanation: he wanted a tow. He'd broken down and got theatrical about it. If I could see his car, I'd pull around, be the decent version of myself, and have a story about how the old road still builds community in the middle of a century too fast for courtesy. There was no car, only the man, the chain, the storm, and the small dark lake forming in the wheel ruts. He lowered the chain and began to walk toward me, not fast, a cadence from a different time. He'll balto as if the asphalt under him had wooden boards nailed into it. The hat brim kept his face in shadow until the lightning pinned it to the moment. He wasn't young. He wasn't old. He wore a jaw the way a cliff wears ledges. One eye seemed wrong, deep set, too bright, like a reflection from the inside out. The chain dragged the line where yellow should have been and made an echo that didn't belong to the rain. I lifted the window. The glass trembled. Wipers clapped themselves stupid and failed to clear anything meaningful. The lane departure system squealed at me because it couldn't find a lane to depart from. I dropped the car into reverse and put 30 feet of night back between us. His pace didn't change. He kept coming. I don't scare easy because fear is expensive and maintenance is cheaper. But there's a threshold where instinct pays in cash. I eased around him, tires flirting with the gravel shoulder, careful not to slide into the ditch that every desert road keeps on hand to punish show-offs. He rotated as I passed, keeping me in the notch between hat brim and collar. The chain came up and came down, and the last link bit the edge of my hood with the sound of a wrench thrown into gears. The lights died, the engine shuddered, the dashboard turned to a blackout theater. Momentum did what ignition refused to. I coasted 10 yards and stopped. Silence came in hard. The storm dimmed to a far room noise like I closed a door on it. I could hear something new now, close and small, the tick-tick-tick of an old clock. It came from under the dash where no clock lives. He reached the bumper and laid a palm on it like a priest on a coffin. I saw his hand clearly then. The skin was too tight across the bones. The nails were clean. The palm had a dark patch where a wedding band might have been if the finger hadn't learned a lesson about rings and machinery. Water ran off him and then didn't. He put his mouth near the license plate and spoke. I didn't hear it. I felt it through the metal, through the bolts, through the frame, words as vibration, syllables like a hand closing around something soft. I threw the car into drive out of reflex and twisted the key like behavior could resurrect electricity. Nothing. No cough, no whine, no stupid hopeful click. The chain lifted off the hood under no hand and made a loop in the air and settled again, a weight on a chest. Lightning picked a mesa and kept it. The road shone like a vein. In the flash, I saw the reflectors behind him, eyelets in a line, but some of them weren't reflectors. They were bottle caps hammered into wood, a guardrail from the 1950s that never got replaced. The kind of retrofit I'd marked on surveys a dozen times. Then nodded when budgets chose now over then. His coat had the cut of that decade. His hat too. The chain didn't. The chain belonged to ships and basements and back rooms where men keep things they shouldn't. He turned his head and looked past me down the road. I followed the gaze because I am not immune to cues. Headlights trembled in the rain 10 curves back. A semi probably wandering the old route to save on tolls. My throat loosened a degree. Trucks mean witnesses. Trucks mean scale. He lifted the chain off the hood. Power came back like a breath. The dash lit, the fan coughed warm air, the lane camera found a white line where there wasn't one. The radio caught a station mid-lyric, something about mercy, and lost it. I had a half-second to celebrate basic physics before he swung the chain sideways and brought it down across my windshield. The glass didn't crack, it wrinkled like skin. The wipers stuttered and stuck. Rain crawled in patterns I've only ever seen under microscopes. The world beyond the glass shifted a degree left as if the car had moved without moving. He leaned close enough that I could see the white in the wrong eye. It wasn't an eye. It was a reflection of something behind me that wasn't there. He spoke again to the plate, louder. The tick under the dash matched the syllables and then outpaced them. My heart raced to keep company. The semi's lights grew, swimming toward us, horn unfurling one long note that asked a single good question. What are you doing? The man with the chain smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was a diagram, teeth too neat in a mouth that had learned the taste of blood the same month Eisenhower cut ribbons. He took the chain in both hands now, bracing and pulled. The car slid. Not forward, not backward. Sideways across the wet black toward the drop. The steering wheel twitched in my hands like an animal wanting to go where animals go when they aren't here anymore. I slammed the brake and got a polite suggestion in return. ABS clicked once, gave up, went to prayer. The semi was on us. The horn went from question to command. Its brakes woke up the whole county, a scream of friction and the furnace-hot breath of 1,000 pounds discovering inertia has an opinion. It filled my mirrors with light until I owned no shadow of my own. The man with the chain leaned his weight into the pull. Rain flattened under his boots. The guardrail behind him, the bottle cap kind, shivered and showed me its rotten posts and the black slope beyond where nothing returns upright. I shouted something with no words in it, dropped the gear into low, floored the gas, and felt the tires hunt for purchase like hands on a wet rung. The engine didn't care about ghosts, it cared about fuel and air. It found both and made a case for life. The car lurched forward an inch. The chain held a different opinion. The inch became 2 in the wrong direction. The semi passed in a hurricane. Wind slapped the car like a correction. The horn washed over us and then away, last echo bouncing off the low rocks. In its wake came a pressure change, a hole in the air the size of a 2-story lie. The chain jerked, went slack, and clanged against the hood, real sound again, honest metal. I didn't wait for a second vote. The car bit the wet and launched itself 5 feet towards survival. The man with the chain stumbled 1/2 step, hat brim lifting. Lightning nailed the world for a heartbeat, and in that white I saw his face whole. The wrong eye wasn't an eye. It was a hole where a windshield had gone home with him. Trapezoid of glass still riding the socket, spiderwebbed, reflecting a night from 1952 that had not finished. He recovered his balance with a dancer's poverty of motion and brought the chain up again fast, but momentum was a partner at last. I shot past him, mirror shaving coat, water exploding off the tires. He didn't chase. He turned in place and watched me go like a man making a list. The radio found a station with a preacher shouting about accounts overdue. The lane camera calmed itself. The GPS put a blue triangle back on a road the state forgot. I drove until the storm ran out of vocabulary and the desert exhaled. At a gas station that wasn't quite closed, I stood under an awning with a cup of coffee that thought it was brown water and watched the car drip onto a stained concrete island. The attendant had a calendar from a year the company didn't exist anymore. He asked me if the rain had been bad. I said it had been persuasive. He said the stretch of 66 does that to people. I asked if he'd ever heard of a man with a chain. He said he had. Then he said he hadn't. Then he rang up my coffee and didn't watch me leave. Back in the car, I smelled something that wasn't rain. Old gasoline and old tobacco and the sweet copper note of a wound you forgot to tend. I checked the back seat. Empty. I checked the passenger floor. There were wet footprints there, heel ball toe, older than the storm. The clock under the dash ticked once more and stopped. I drove on. The road ahead ran straight long enough for the dawn to undo what the night had tied. I kept one eye on the mirror because some bridges never got inspected again and some men never learned to die or leave. When lightning flickered in the glass where nothing should have been, I didn't look twice. I held the wheel steady and counted miles in my head like rosary. Every 10th mile I listened for a small clean chime that chain links make when they forget where they are. I never once told myself I hadn't seen him. That would be a lie with maintenance costs. Morning burned the storm off fast. Arizona reassembled itself like a film reel rewound. The red rock, the scrub, the silence pretending to be peace. I told myself what engineers tell themselves after nightmares, that reality was just a matter of measurement. But every gauge in the car read perfect and nothing about me did. The footprints had dried to dust, vanishing when the sun hit them. The clock under the dash was dead again, but sometimes I thought I still heard its heartbeat. A single tick when the road curved, another when the tires crossed old paint. I drove east with the windows cracked, letting hot air scour what was left of fear. A sign passed, Route 66 Museum, next exit, hand-painted, too bright for its rusted frame. I laughed under my breath. A museum for a road still pretending to live. But curiosity is another form of weakness, and engineers worship data. I turned off, tires crunching gravel, heading toward a building that looked older than its roof allowed. The museum was a long, low diner repainted to look historical. One man at the counter, one woman behind it. She poured coffee into a cup already full. I sat 2 stools down, the kind of polite that hopes for conversation to die of natural causes. The walls were covered with photos, black and white ghosts of cars, truckers, and families grinning beside Cadillacs. But every third photo shared something wrong. A faint chain gleam, a blur across the frame, a white streak shaped like a man who refused exposure. The waitress noticed my stare. "You like the old stories." "I like roads," I said, "the way they hold memory." She smiled without her eyes moving. "Then you're in the right place." I pointed to a photo, a wrecked Buick 1950s, driver's side crushed, headlights still on though the picture was decades dead. What happened to him? "Who? Elias Crow?" She said the name too easily. "Drunk, hit the guardrail outside Hallbrook. They never found the body, just the car. Some say he walked off into the desert. Others say the desert walked him." Crow, I repeated it, the name tasting like old metal. She poured me coffee I hadn't asked for. "Some nights truckers still see him, standing on the road with his chain. He tows cars that don't need towing. You hear the rattle, you don't stop." I nodded like a man humoring folklore, but the air in the diner carried static, faint, and rising. The ceiling fans slowed. The lights dimmed until the daylight had to carry the weight. I looked back at the counter man. He hadn't moved, not blinked. The coffee surface vibrated once, twice, then stilled. The waitress leaned closer. "You're driving east, aren't you?" "How'd you?" "You smell like rain and iron," she said, voice gone soft as static. "You've been marked." I stood so fast the stool spun. The lights flickered once, twice, then stayed out. When I looked back at the photo wall, all the glass frames were fogged from the inside. My reflection was gone from each one. Outside, the road was empty. The museum behind me looked abandoned now, sign fallen, windows dusted thick. The door hung loose on a single hinge. I drove without starting the GPS, but the voice came anyway through the speakers, a whisper shaped by feedback. "You owe him a tow." The radio tuned itself to AM, a male voice, old, grainy. "Accident on Route 66. Driver name Elias Crow, age 42, declared dead at scene."
Static.
Then another voice, mine. "He's not dead, he's standing in the road." I killed the radio. The whisper stayed low and behind the dash, the same tick as before but faster, like a chain dropped down a steel staircase. By nightfall, the air cooled. The highway unwound across empty flats, telephone poles repeating until they lost count. I'd promised myself no more superstition, but superstition doesn't need permission. When lightning blinked on the horizon, I tightened my grip on the wheel and counted the seconds like a man trying to outpace memory. I saw him again at mile marker 177. Same hat, same chain, same impossible stillness. This time he didn't stand in my path. He stood off the shoulder, watching the sky like he was waiting for something to fall from it. The chain dragged lightly in the gravel, making a rhythm that somehow matched the ticking under my dash. I slowed, I couldn't help it. The air pressure dropped, a hollow in the world. He raised one hand and pointed at the dirt beyond the fence, an old service road half buried in sand. His mouth moved, silent. The GPS woke on its own. "Turn right 0.1 miles." I didn't. The tires stayed straight. The whisper under the dash slowed, disappointed. The man lowered his arm, turned, and walked into the desert. I stopped a mile later, desert to the left, nothing to the right. The radio turned itself on again, white noise thick as breath. Then under it, a faint sound, chains dragging across stone, the rhythm of footsteps that didn't belong to mine. The headlight beams flickered. The left one died, leaving half the world in shadow. In the glass of the dead headlight, I saw a reflection that wasn't mine. A man's face, half lit, one eye bright white, mouth forming words I couldn't hear. I stepped out because sometimes curiosity wins where courage fails. The silence outside was total. My shadow reached the edge of the beam and stopped. The sand there was darker, wetter, wrong. I knelt. The ground was soft, not sand, mud. I touched it, rubbed between fingers. It smelled like iron and oil and time, a highway repairman's grave. When I looked up, the road behind me was gone. The desert had closed over it like a healed wound. I turned toward where my car should have been. The headlights were still burning, but farther away, too far, like someone had rolled it back half a mile without tire marks.
And standing between me and it, the man. The chain coiled at his feet like a pet.
His hat was gone now, and I saw his face whole, a man half erased by glass and decades, eyes full of other people's wrecks. He lifted the chain and pointed it at the sky. Thunder answered him, not from clouds but from the ground. The desert shook once as if something massive had turned over in its sleep beneath us. He looked at me then, really looked, and the sound inside my head was not words but command.
Drive it.
Then he stepped backward into the mud and sank, slow and sure, like the road was taking him back for maintenance. I ran to the car, the door opened by itself, the engine was already idling, the GPS said. Follow the road, he needs company. I didn't argue. The wheels caught traction and the desert became highway again, smooth, black, endless. In the mirror, the chain dragged behind me, catching sparks against invisible asphalt. Every few seconds I heard a single metallic chime. The tick under the dash joined in, syncing, keeping time. I drove until the stars went out one by one. When dawn broke, I was parked at a rest stop with no memory of stopping. Dust covered everything but the license plate. Someone had traced words into it with a finger.
CROWE.
The chain lay coiled in the passenger seat. Some things a rational mind files under stress, heat, dehydration. I tried. But when I threw the chain into a drainage ditch outside Flagstaff, I heard it hit metal instead of stone, like a second chain waiting to be joined. That night, my rental's dash display glowed without the key in. The trip odometer rolled backward from 177 miles to 0. And the GPS whispered, cheerful as ever. Welcome to Route 66, next destination yourself. Story 3, Mike and the Route 66 Ghost. Part I, Segment 3, The Dead of the Road. I kept driving east because the human brain mistakes movement for safety. The map said New Mexico, but the road kept saying Arizona like it refused the border. Every sign leaned at the same angle, names fading to ash, Gallup, Grants, Moriarty, all half erased as if the desert was editing. The air grew thinner, quieter. The engine's hum went hollow, like sound inside a coffin. My phone had died days ago, though I couldn't remember the day it happened. The only light inside the car came from the dash clock, ticking forward, then backward like a drunk metronome. I told myself to focus on the road lines. I told myself to stop listening for chains. It didn't work. At 3:11 a.m., a white glow appeared behind me, a single headlight, faint but steady like a motorcycle keeping pace. Every time I accelerated, it matched. When I slowed, it did too. I killed my lights to let my eyes adjust. The desert didn't change. The stars didn't exist. Only that one light floating behind, keeping distance like it knew my pulse. I'd had enough. I pulled to the shoulder and stepped out. Wind, none. Sound, none. The light stopped 50 yards back, idling just beyond the curve. I waited for a voice, an engine, anything, nothing, just that steady eye staring through the dark. Then without sound, it blinked once and vanished. In its place came a faint metallic echo, chink, drag, chink from the dirt off the road. The rhythm was slower now, like something packing me under the surface. I climbed back into the car, hands shaking. The windshield fogged from the inside, and when I wiped it, there were words written backward across the glass. Pay the toll. The next town wasn't a town. It was a shadow of 3 boarded houses, 1 gas pump, a church missing its cross. A faded banner flapped against a chain-link fence, Welcome to ASHCROFD, Pop 212. There were no people, no cars, but the street lamps glowed, running on a grid that shouldn't still have power. The gas station door hung open, lights humming. The sign over the register said Route 66 Historical Stop. I should have kept going, but the need to see proof that I wasn't losing my mind pulled stronger than fear. Inside, the shelves were full, chips, jerky, soda, all sealed, all clean as if stocked yesterday. Behind the counter, an old rotary phone rang once. Then again. Then again. I lifted it. You took the chain, a voice said. I froze. Who is this? You know who. Crow. Names don't matter, only roads and debts. The line clicked, static rose, thick as breathing. Every mile you drive belongs to someone. I built this one, I bled for it. They forgot my name paved over my bones, but roads remember. I whispered, "What do you want?" "Return what's mine." The connection broke. The light snapped off. When my eyes adjusted, the store was gone. I stood on sand. The wind carved my footprints away as fast as I made them. The only light was from my car, headlights burning alone in the dark, pointed east. I drove without memory of starting. The dash glowed blood red. The radio spoke again, voice grainy but steady, Crows. "You drive the road drives you. Every ghost needs a vehicle." Lightning stitched across the sky. In its brief flash, I saw the road surface shimmer like glass, shapes moving beneath, cars, bodies, faces pressed against the underside of asphalt, screaming silently upward. They were all drivers, trapped, miles of them. I slammed the gas pedal. The odometer flipped wildly, numbers spinning forward, then backward, then all zeros. The headlights caught something new ahead, a line of white posts on both sides of the road, hundreds of them, each wrapped with twisted metal and chains. The posts marked the edge of an old bridge. At the center stood a figure holding something that glittered. Crow. His coat hung open now, soaked dark with rain that wasn't falling. He raised his chain and pointed it at the bridge deck. "Stop," I shouted through the windshield. "You're dead." He smiled, "So are you." The chain struck the pavement. The bridge buckled with the sound of 1,000 engines dying at once. The car fishtailed. The guardrails bent inward like ribs closing around a heart. Every post flared white for one instant, illuminating faces trapped inside the metal, eyes and mouths frozen in the shape of last breath. I slammed the brakes, skidded sideways, the front wheels hanging inches from the drop. Beneath, the canyon yawned black and endless. Crow stepped forward. "I built this road. I paved it with every man they buried cheap. You're the first who listened. That's why you owe me." I grabbed the chain from my passenger seat and threw it at his feet. "Take it, I don't want it." He picked it up, coiling it in his hands. "Too late, you drove it." Then he dropped the last link and it fell through the bridge like through water. The deck split open, light bursting upward, not white but red like brake lights from beneath the earth. I threw the car in reverse. The tires screamed, the bridge tilted. Crow laughed. "You can't leave the highway, son. You are the highway." I don't remember crossing. Maybe I didn't. Maybe the bridge swallowed me whole and spit out whatever's left. When I woke, daylight burned through the windshield. I was parked outside my own apartment in Chicago. Engine cold. No chain in the seat. I stumbled out. Everything looked normal, mailbox, street, morning traffic. But when I bent down to check my license plate, I saw fresh marks across it. Small, neat scratches spelling one word. CROWE. That night I walked to my window, overlooking I-90. Every car below left a streak of light, red and white and endless. Somewhere in the middle lane, a single pair of headlights blinked in perfect rhythm, on, off, like a chain swinging. I closed the blinds. The ticking under my desk started again, faint, metallic, patient. Some roads don't end, they just wait for you to drive them again.